A nation at the crossroad. At a crossroad. I want you to go and hold into 1 Samuel 8, 1 to 18, because we're going to go there and we're going to stay there. It's going to be easy today. 1 Samuel 8, 1 to 18, and we're going to get inside of it. I want us to take a deep look at what was happening with Israel at the point in time. And somewhere along the line, we're going to look at what is happening in our nation. Just cross-reference. Israel was at a period of transition. And the people had a reasonable complaint. They wanted a change of leadership. But wanting a change of leadership is one thing. With Israel, that desire, nothing was wrong with it. Except they needed to look at their heart condition, because the change they desired was hinged to a dangerous desire within themselves. 1 Samuel 8 tells us, and it came about when Samuel was old that he appointed his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. They were judging in Beersheba. His sons, however, did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain, and took bribes and perverted justice. And we kind of looking at the norm in a lot of judicial services these days, or in a lot of leadership positions in industry. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, "Behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like the nations around us." So they came to Ramah to confront Samuel. Now the complaint, as I said, sounds reasonable. You are old and your sons do not walk in your ways. The sons were very rebellious. But beneath the surface, there was a deeper issue. And that issue laid in the fact that they wanted to be like the nations around them. They wanted an earthly king. And there is a deep heart issue with that. From the time they were looking for an earthly king, it meant that they were rejecting God's unique calling. They were rejecting God's unique leadership. They were rejecting God's unique identity for them. So this is not merely political dissatisfaction. It was also spiritual rebellion. They were no longer happy with what they had, and they wanted to be like the nations around them. It's like the dog with the bone. He had a good bone, but he see an image in the water, it looked bigger. He let go his bone, and we know the story. So they were looking at what was happening around them. Now, for them to desire an earthly king instead of God, it means that they were having a trust issue. They were having a trust issue with God. And that caused Samuel to be very hurt. In 1 Samuel 8, verses 6 to 9, note, "But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel when they said, 'Give us a king to judge us.' And Samuel prayed to the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, 'Listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought them up from Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other gods. So they are doing to you also. Now then, listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly warn them and tell them of the procedure of the king who will reign over them. So God decided to let them have their way. As usual, we put it in a local balance. They're big enough. And once they're big enough, let them do what they had to do or want to do. And that's exactly what took place there. Samuel felt that they were neglecting him or they didn't want him, and they were rejecting him. And God had to tell Samuel, it's not about you, Samuel. It's about me. They're not rejecting you as they are rejecting me. In other words, if somebody is saying that they no longer want to be in the place of church, they no longer want to be in the place where God is and what have you, they're not rejecting the leader of the house, they are rejecting God. Because if it's an issue where they're not rejecting God, it's easy to say, well, look, I'm going somewhere else. I'll leave it and I'm going somewhere else. But when that is not in the equation, something else is happening. So Samuel was in deep pain, but God revealed the truth. They have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. And if we examine the issues carefully, Israel's problem was not their leadership structure, it was their heart structure. Something was going on in their heart when they wanted to reject God. They wanted predictability instead of faith. Because if you're in with God, it's a faith walk. When you reject God, it's something else. They wanted visibility instead of trust. In other words, the other kings, they were there, they could be seeing, whatever they wanted to do was in the open. With God is a different story. We are even sure if there is one. That's what they were possibly saying in their heart, because we are seeing him. They forgot who took them out of Egypt. And it happens even with us as individuals. When we're in a situation, sometimes there's a tendency to forget where God took us from. So we look at now in front of us, forgetting that, wait a minute, we came from way down the road. And God has been with us since then. They wanted conformity instead of holiness, because they were looking at everything else around them and they were saying in their hearts, we want to be like Mike. We want to do that. And the word is clear. Do not be conformed, but be transformed. You see, it's not about men. This is a temptation that many of us as believers face today. By wanting progress without understanding some of its implications. It's all right to want progress, but have you really weighed the situation? Have you looked to see what is the cost you have to pay? And in the process, we end up by replacing God's rule with human systems, human strength, or human security. And we know once it's human security, it's going to fail. It is going to fail. Considering Israel's request, God told Samuel to outline to the people the cost of a human kingship. In other words, God said, I'm all right, I could leave you all. But you see this? Let them know up front. Let them count the cost. In 1 Samuel 8 verses 10 to 18, Samuel begins to outlay to the people what is the cost of an earthly king. And I want us to really pay attention to this portion of scripture, the cost of an earthly king. And bear in your mind that no government can meet the needs of a people fully. Only God. So Samuel spoke all the words of the Lord to the people who had asked of him a king. He said, this will be the procedure of the king who will reign over you. And notice, he will take your sons and place them for himself in his chariot and among his horsemen, and so they will run before his chariots. He will appoint for himself commanders of the thousands and of fifties, and some to do his plowing, and to reap his harvest, and to make his weapons of war, and equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers, and cooks, and bakers. He will take the best of your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive groves, and give them to his servants. He will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards, and give to his officers and to his servants. He will also take your male servants and your female servants and your best young men and your donkeys and use them for his work. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his servants. Then you will cry out in that day because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day. In other words, this is what you wanted, take it. And many times we have to tell people that. This is what you want? Take it. But if it doesn't work for you, don't turn back. Because that is what you wanted. In the midst of all of this, with the advent of Jesus Christ, we know that God is faithful. He's faithful. And there are many occasions that he has forgiven us. Even when we make wrong choices. Back then, that was it for them. That was it. Samuel outlined the reality of a human king. And 6 times in the text, the phrase, he will take, showed up. He will take your sons. He will take your daughters. He will take your fields. He will take your vineyards. He will take your flocks. You will become his slaves. In other words, and if we're paying attention now around the world, governments are stripping people of their rightful ownership of many things. In fact, we are coming to the place where, trust me, we are just going to be sitting at the behest of rulers. We are at a place where we can't even consider ourselves a sovereign nation in Trinidad and in many other nations, because the laws of the United Nations want to supersede the laws in the nation. In other words, we can get up one day and our so-called leader has no voice. The contrast is striking. God gives life, blessing, identity, and inheritance. What a trade-off we make when we choose not to go with God. Human kingship takes until nothing is left. And we've seen that happening all around us. Because when they come in, we're going to tax. We're going to tax. And the taxes keep increasing until you have nothing for yourself. And there is coming a time when, because of how they're going to set up the monetary systems, that your own money, you're going to have problem to spend it. And in fact, that has already happened in some nations of the world where they were shut down, the banking system shut down. And they were left to do nothing but go in a corner and weep. Beside those human kings, we also as a people have set up some other kings over our lives. The king of relationships. We can't do without a man or woman. We must have somebody, otherwise I don't know how I'm going to make out. If somebody ain't there for me, I'm alone, and I'm afraid to be alone. Even in the relationship is the careers. We working 24/7 because I love this job. That's my career. If I don't have a job, I ain't got nothing to eat. All you know the situation I'm going to be in? No. Your career not supposed to have a hold over your life. Some of us, make kings and leaders. The leader can do nothing wrong. The leader is always right. And we end up building a cult. Because whatever the leader say, that is it. We forget how to think for ourselves. Never end up in that place. Because that's when you are enslaved without even realizing it. We have habits that we make king over our lives. Some of us in Christianity, but we still have some old habits that, as we say, we salting up the place. Hope you all understand what I mean. And some of us make king of comfort. In other words, we must have the TV 18-inch. Because if you don't have a big one, you can't see part of what's happening. We must have this in place. We must take this before we eat. In other words, we want to be comfortable. I'm not going to this church because they don't have air condition. They don't have this. We start to look at the aesthetics before we even want to go in a house. It's amazing how we have made things kings over our lives. And we forget at the end of the day, there is only one true king. But there's a spiritual principle I want us to remember today. Anything we enthrone in God's place will eventually enslave us. And that's a fact of life. And all these things come to pass because of our misplaced desires, because of this heart that we have, that, it's above all things deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can trust it? That's why the scripture tells us, lean not to our own understanding, because we can't trust our own heart. We find out about our heart conditions when things happen. It's amazing. Israel wanted a king to fight their battles. And even when the Messiah came, they couldn't settle for him because they were still looking for the king to defeat the Roman Empire. They wanted this king to lead their nation because, you see, all around us, the other nations had kings. And when they went out to war, the kings was in front of them in battle regalia. And that looked good, not understanding that they lost many battles. But when God is fighting for you, you are not going to lose any battle. They wanted a king to give them identity. But the only true identity you have, and the one that we must run with, is that you are a child of the Most High God, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You have no identity in anything else. The image consultant need an image consultant, need an image consultant. And once you need an image consultant, it means that something is wrong with your image. And if somebody has to create an image for you, it means then that it is fake. You are covering up something. But all the things they wanted, God had already promised all of that. That was nothing new. So what did they really want? There was a deeper longing inside of them. The fact that they wanted security without surrender. Ain't that us? Victory without obedience. Sounding like some modern day saints. Identity without holiness. Wow. That's many of us. And sometimes we too drop our guard and think about some things that we may want without God. That is the danger of wanting what God doesn't want for you. We ask for substitute because we don't trust God. God ain't sufficient to meet every need. God ain't good enough to meet the needs that we have. But I am telling you, He is Jireh. Come on, saints. God is Jireh. Jireh means that He is our provider. There is no other Jireh. He is Rapha. He's our healer. There is none other. There is none other. Come on, saints of God. Who else can we go to? As Pastor Raj will always say, everybody else practice. God is the only one who delivers. And that's the truth. Everything else, we're going to practice on you. When you go in and you say X wrong, Y wrong with you, and you talk to the doctor, he just turns and the consultant says, cheat sheet. It's not this, it's not that. I think it's this one. And we better hope he choose the right one. I'm saying today that there are some things that we need to examine in our lives and guard against. Because right now out there in the world is not easy. It's not easy. It's a literal pitfall. It's like walking out a door and there is no step out there to carry you. So you walk out and you just go down and you fall into the trap of the world. We need to examine our desires. We need to examine our desires. What king are we asking for in our lives? As I said, a relationship to validate you. Because we ain't comfortable sometimes unless somebody big us up and make us feel good. In other words, we need to get our ego massaged. And that makes us feel good. A job to secure you. These days, you come home in the evening and you can go back in the morning and get your pink slip. Because they have decided to close down your job and you're the last to find out. So there is no security in what we consider my job. You may well find out my job is not my job. And that's a reality. So a job cannot secure you. The habit cannot comfort you. The leader cannot fix what only God can heal. That's a problem we will have. One of the things that we need to guard against in our lives is cultural pressure. And the young people in schools and other institutions of learning go through a lot of cultural pressure these days. Because one of the things we note, especially in institutions of higher learning, they are under this pressure that there ain't no God. When last you see him? God ain't real. And they run with that garbage. In fact, some of the leading nations in the world now are in a mess because the people that are coming out from schools right now have a different twist in the head as what leadership they require. And because of that, they are all running into bondage, total bondage. And they don't realize they're in bondage until they get their hands tied up and their head squeezed. And things start to fall apart around them. Israel wanted to be like the nations. One of the amazing things that I see is that we watching systems that are failing in the world. They're no good. And yet we are looking at those systems and we saying, you know, that's what I want for me. What is really wrong with the modern day nations of the world? What is wrong? Simply this. Most of them rejecting God and paying a price for it. And that's what happened with Israel as we unfolding here. They wanted something earthly. They don't want God. And pretty soon they find out all forms of earthly government sooner or later fail. And when they fail, what are you standing on if you don't have God? Many saints today feeling the same pull. They want to blend in rather than stand out. There's a difference when you're blending in or standing out. It's hard to say, I serve in God. Or so they think. So it's easier to go with the status quo, the flow. But the flow going down. Flow don't go up, no. Flow going down. The only way it could go up is if you pump it up. Israel looked around and they wanted to be like the nations. As saints, we need to trust God's kingship. You see, because God is not with us each and every moment, we feel there is no God. Because we think it's by our strength that we are getting through in life, or we're doing this in a job, or we're getting through with this, we think it's us. It was never us, and it was always God. The situations that you were in that you didn't even know how you came out, and you say, boy, I'm good. You ain't that good, it was God. And we have a way that we like to build up ourselves, and we're telling a friend, boy, you know I get away from her, no? Boy, especially, boy, I pull this 7 or I pull it. Boy, you talk about drive? It was God. It was God. We just didn't know. It was God. You see, God's leadership is not always visible. And that's why we believe in what we could see rather than what we can't see. But it was always faithful. And he is faithful even when we are not. And we forget that. He never takes to enslave. God never takes to enslave. You can tell anybody that, and that could be a boast. He gives to redeem because he wants you to be reconciled to him. He gives to redeem. He never does it the other way. There was, yes, a reasonable request, but attached to it was a dangerous root. That is why we have to watch our desires. What roots our desires? What is the root? Why are we asking for certain things? What is the root of that desire? Israel's complaint, as we said, was valid, but their solution was sinful. And that don't equate at all. It don't make sense. As present-day saints, we are still being faced with these issues. Will we trust God to rule over our lives or enthrone human substitute? We have a decision to make. Now I want to pull it all back before we close to what is happening in our nation in Trinidad and Tobago. Jump high, jump low. Our nation has been faced with many challenges. There is no doubt about that. And there is like a spiritual oppression around the nation that is not funny. I mean, we could talk real. You literally feel the oppression. Many people not working. But as they get a little change in the hand, here they thinking. I don't all the time, yes? I need a little entertainment. Suddenly we realize we need entertainment. So instead of applying what you get to purpose, you apply it to a little spree. No. Look at what happens. Trini is popular for spending what they don't have. Anywhere in the world you go, you meet a Trini. Most times, they put up a front. They do like if they are endless dollars to spend. And they're broken. But that's the nature of we. We are in the midst of a spiritual and financial challenging period. It's a fact. How many people choosing to no longer trust God? How many people choosing to no longer want to hear about God? How many people do not understand that we have only made it thus far in life because of God? And because we didn't see how he was working in the background, we have decided in our minds, there ain't no God. I ain't have time to trust that. I'm telling you, he's real. He's very real. As a people, we need to carefully examine decisions that we are about to make at both individual and national level. Because we cannot think about just ourselves. Because everything that happens in the nation impacts us as individuals. There is this need for progress in all the nations because we need to keep abreast with technological advances. So everybody wants to be on the cutting edge. And if you're on the cutting edge, something wrong. In other words, it's like the days when they free up the internet and you had some amazing download and upload speeds, and we were still on dial-up. And we all said in coming out of it, dial-up is the devil. Because you sat down and you were watching this thing, and other people were just downloading and uploading. That had to be the devil. But not every advance can be looked at that way. We have to always look and ask ourselves, what is the cost of the gains that we want or the gains that we have made in this digital age? Do we really ask ourselves what is the cost of progress? In the 1980s, we had this prolific songwriter for Calypsonian, Winsford Joker Devine. And he penned a calypso that Austin Lewis, who was known as King Austin, sang. And I don't know if we remember, the name of that tune was The Price of Progress, or many just called it Progress. And part of the lyric is that the price of progress is high. And that's a true thing. And there was a refrain to that song while they were singing, and it went, even though the price of progress is high, the refrain went, no one can deny that the price of progress is high, real high. And that truth is so much amongst us today that is not funny. We all want to progress, but progress has a cost attached to it. And can you pay the cost? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Can Trinidad and Tobago citizens pay the price? Whatever needs to be done, can we pay the price? Yes, we need development. That's a fact. Every nation needs development. But we are faced with a challenge now where they're talking about data centers and the like, and they want to sell it that we're on the cutting edge of AI and what have you. But without certain things, we could still be cutting edge. Yes, we need the revenue as a nation, but we don't need to kill ourselves in the process. What will be the outcome on our fragile ecosystem if certain things are allowed to happen in the name of progress? Will we be able to pay that price? Yes, we need to be developed. But we also need to be careful. We need to be very careful because we have already seen the cost of some things in the digital age. Digital progress has already sidelined a large percent of our elderly population. They are being marginalized, and the banking system shows up. It's one of the areas because, let's face facts, not every elderly person could buy a tablet or a cutting-edge phone. Not every elderly person could understand the dynamics of new age technology. But everybody, new and old, is being forced to go online. And if you don't have the means of going online, it means that they have taken you offline. And there are many things that you do not have access to that you will like to have. And many are vulnerable because plenty people who teaching them how to use it, thieving them. And many don't have people to teach them, and they're going online and making mistakes. And somebody else is only willing to facilitate your bank account. In fact, even those who know at some point in time, they're getting blindsided because the systems that they have up do not have enough digital security. Or as they say, cyber crime is the biggest crime in this day and age. And everybody think it's so easy and nice until they suffer the consequence of getting robbed. Then they realize, wait a minute, this thing is not bulletproof as we are being led to believe. There is so much security that you have to go through. There is so much care that you have to take when you're going online that is not funny. And some of it real cute. Imagine you getting a mail that your package arrive at Piaco. You know that you have no package coming in, but curiosity kills the cat. You want to find out what in the midst of this package. So you go online, and next thing you know, every cent in your bank account is gone because somebody has come in on your system. It's real, people. It's real. So all people being marginalized. Look at the banking stipulations. In some banks you go in, you have to have over $6,000 to get the privilege of going to the teller. Other than that, you go to the ATM. Isn't it amazing that we're so concerned about crime, and yet you holding $6,000, and that might be much, and you have to wait and go to deposit it in an ATM. And many times you get there and the ATM out of order or can't take your money. Isn't it amazing what is happening? Do you see the large percent of folks, especially elderly, to line up waiting to go in the ATM? Why the bank still open? Because they cannot go to the teller for certain transactions. And let me tell you something. There is nothing in the digital age that can replace a courteous person interacting with you. And I'm not saying that we need to stand in the way of progress. I'm saying we need to look at how things are implemented. It is wrong to marginalize people. In the average age person wants to go up and meet the teller and a level of comfort with them. They're going online while they're home. They want to know how to access certain things. If we're not mindful, if we forget that one day we too will be considered old and left behind. Boy, oh boy, we in for a ride. We are in for a ride. It's all right when you're young and you pick up your little fanciful computer and you're dazzling through, bam, 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 bam. But one day, as it's happening now, you are going to be left behind. So what is the safeguard you taking? One day you're going to be saying, I don't understand this technology, So how do we get to that place where as technology is introduced, that nobody is left behind? That's why God is so good. The only people who get left behind is who want to be left behind. Because his wish is that none should perish. Do you think anybody in the banking system care if you left behind? First to begin with, you're not one of the major depositors. So they don't care. Do the workers know what is happening? They know, but they're powerless. Because let me tell you something. Away, in some places where they used to have banks, they just have ATMs. And the same is going to happen here. So some of the people at the counter fearful because just now the ATMs will get more sophisticated. And when you go to the bank, all you will have is maybe 6, 7, 8 ATMs seeing about your need. Good morning. How can we help you? And what fooling people, they calling you by your name after you put in your card. So you have been identified, and that sort of make the thing personalized. But let me tell you something. If the person at the counter saying the same thing to everybody who come up, something wrong. You have your way to greet people. You know this one and you know that one, and you interact differently with them. The machine don't have time with that. I am saying that one day, you just may be facilitating something that is going to totally replace you. Contend with that. What now happens? We are heading into a world where literally if you ain't tech savvy, you're left behind. That's it. So if you don't know how to be tech savvy, what is going to be your earning? What is going to be happening? We cannot stand in the way of progress. But progress must be carefully thought out so that no one is left behind. Too much stipulation is being placed on these projects now. And note something. I'm using the data center application because it's fresh in our mind and it's one that there's a lot of uprising taking place in the nation. Technically, third world nations are a dumping ground. Why am I saying that? Because right now, in the more advanced nations of the world, they had a lot of pushback against the data center. They need a lot of water to keep going. They need a lot of electrical power to keep doing. They're noisy in terms of electrical noise and even the fact that they must be online. So if power goes, you have to have generating systems that really will produce noise in the area. In other words, they are damaging the environment that they're in presently. So since the people in these developed nations pushing back, we're going to come and sell it in the third world nations because they need money. So they don't care what happened in the environment because they need the money. And that is what is taking place. You see, anytime you find yourself in a place of need and you decide, well, anything goes, anybody could push anything down your throat. And when these things are not carefully thought of in a nation, we have a big word. What? Authoritarian begins to take place quietly. And that's when we know the nation begins to be under siege. Authoritarian is at the door. Not because of, let's say, we presently have enough, but because of thinking of men in this day and age. Everybody wants to rule the world. Everybody wants to find a way to rule the world. And everybody going to sell you something that will tell you, I will handle your stories. I will do this. I will do that. And they all fail. Let's look around the world. We have seen government after government fall. We have seen the systems fall apart. And yet so many are saying, this system, we want this system, we want that. And men are failing all around constantly. And for years, only one government has remained. That is kingdom government. And we're still sitting and wanting these people to lead us. What is wrong with people, boy? We need to wake up. and all sorts of foolishness holding the minds of the young people, as I said, especially in institutions of higher learning, because they are taught all sorts of garbage. And if anything is said about God, they want to suppress it or suppress them. And here what is amazing. They act like they don't want to control you. But hear this. Everything that you're not part of, that is the is and the now, they say you phobia. You're phobic. You're dysphobic. And you're that phobic. And the cancer culture want to take you out. That's what Israel was, you know. Most of the people wanted an earthly king. Don't believe there are some in the nation who will take that route. But you know what? Everybody starts to say this. You don't like me. We have no rights. But in the process of their rights, they want to cancel yours. Please, folks, it's time that we be on praying ground. Something is coming to a third world nation near us. Now, note something. In the midst of all this development, one area is suffering: agricultural development. It's amazing. But here it is. When we look at what is taking place there, we have to understand that anytime you start to grow your own food, you become self-sufficient. And no big nation wants no little third world nation to be self-sufficient. In other words, they must always have us in a place where we're dependent on them. And we are falling for it. So there is a form of bondage, there is a form of slavery that is taking place in the world, and people just not in chains. And we are part of that. All the things that we are implementing, even on a financial basis, is the fact that these leaders want those things to be implemented in our nation, and we are finding out that what we have in place is superseded by something else. Have you been to the bank lately? Just now they're going to ask for 3 forms of ID, because it used to be 1 form of ID, then it's 2 forms of ID. Just now they want 3 forms of ID. Isn't it amazing what is happening? One nation is suffering because they want ID for everything else except when they have to vote. Isn't it crazy, the things that are happening around the world? We have reached a point where many are calling good evil and evil. The world is in chaos. Israel was at that place many years ago. We are operating at the behest of the developed nations. They have changed the slavery system. But I wish to tell our folks today that we need to be careful, because the worst form of slavery is financial slavery, and the worst thing about it is that sometimes you don't know you're enslaved. But your money locked down. You have lost your purchasing power. It's not a nice place to be in. Let us have a desire for the only true and living King. Let our hearts change. There needs to be a desire to return to the only King who does not take but gives. He does not take but he gives. King Jesus, the true and better King. To get back to that place, we need to examine our desires. We need to resist cultural pressure, because the whole nation, they're trying to box you in. Don't take my word. Go look in the nations of the world and you will see what is happening. I'm saying forget about the cultural pressure. Embrace God's kingship with trust and joy. And I am letting each and every one know that is our only hope in this present day world that we are in. Get to know him. If you hear his voice today, harden not your heart. Seek his face while he can be found. And remember, do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because if your mind is not renewed, you're going to make some bad choices. You're going to make some bad decisions. And this is not like long time, people. Long time, when you mess up, you still have a chance to recover a little bit. You see, now, you slip, you slide, you're gone. It doesn't even have a room for recovery based on how things are unfolding now. The world is in a state of decay. Quick, quick, quick. And that's how we know that God is real. Pick up your Bible, go through it, and see if the things you are reading are not unfolding in our present day world. That's the easiest thing to do. Don't look at, I have seen God. Just look at your scriptures and you will realize that everything that is there is unfolding in front of our very eyes. And you don't let nobody look at you and tell you, you only know the Bible confusing. Yes, there are some stupid editions that we need to leave behind. They have gotten the translation wrong. That's all right. But you pick up a good Bible, a good translation, and I am telling you, after you have gone through it, you know that God is real. Don't take anybody's word for it. You go read. And that is the problem in the world today. Many are not reading the word. So they have taken, well, my leader say, your leader needs a leader. Your leader needs somebody who knows to teach them. Check your heart. Many times it's not what your leader say, you know. It's what you want in your heart. Take time to go and read your word. Take time to see that the scriptures talk about wars, rumors of wars, and earthquakes and what have you. And look around the world. It is all happening. Take time and see how people getting wicked in the word. Take time and see that the scripture tells us men will be lovers of themselves. And you look around. I love myself better than I love myself. That's the times that we are in. This time call for serious introspection. Who are you serving in this age? Are you going to serve man or to serve God? That is the question that all of us have to answer. But we must remember this one thing, and I'm leaving this with you. It is appointed unto man. You fill in the blanks. After that, the judgment. Go and see what you have in between. Start with once or something. Because if we don't get that once right, all the queries that we have about God be answered with great heat. That's all I will say. Glean from that. And remember, as we go along today, price of progress is high, real high.